Hello and welcome to See the Stories. Now it's about time for our signature segment of the 3-hour news show. And what's really interesting about this topic that you've just mentioned in the headline, right? We're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, mostly inclusivity. That is a big topic since the Y20 here in Indonesia 2 years ago.
2 years ago, right?
Yeah, I remember we had Y20 representatives that came here and that talked about, this year we're going to do something really different. We're going to push for inclusivity, which means it's not just women empowerment anymore.
Yeah.
Inclusion is much bigger now than women empowerment because there's so many more marginalized communities or, marginalized societies that require boost to equity and, equal access to opportunities.
Right. It is interesting that it can include the youngers or the youngsters from which has the special needs for that, and actually they have their inclusivity for following the summit.
That's right.
The platform with the Y Summit in Brazil. So this year's Y20 Summit will take place from August 10 to 17 in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and several topics will be prioritized in this year's summit, namely hunger, poverty and inequality, climate change, energy transition, sustainable development, global governance reforms, innovation, inclusion and diversity, as well as the future of work. And Indonesia is set to send 5 youngsters to the event to speak in each category. As you've mentioned, Kai, yes, this year's Y20 Summit will take place from, it's along a week, prior to our Independence Day, from 10 of August to 17. And it will be held not in Brasilia, but in the Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So the several topics, as I mentioned earlier, we'll talk about hunger, poverty and inequality, climate change, energy transition, sustainable development, global governance reform, innovation, inclusion and diversity, as well as the future of work. Interesting.
Yeah, and out of so many youths in Indonesia, they've selected 5, and we have one of them in the studio with us today.
Yes.
And now we have an Indonesian delegate who will speak in the Y20 Summit this year in Brazil. Please welcome Nadhifatun Nurrur Rahma in the studio, and she will attend the event to speak about inclusion and diversity. So she's hard of hearing. We will utilize, it's really interesting, a transcription app which she uses. But before we discuss her involvement in the Y20, can you show us our app first? But first, let's welcome Nadhifa to the studio. Hi.
Okay, so if you see this screen, we have a live transcription app that shows my application, my transcription application. I'm someone of hard hearing, but you can see it transcribes my words time to time in real time. So this helps me to communicate with other people in any language, including Indonesian, English, and any other language, as long as you speak clearly to the application.
Does it also automatically translate for you?
Yes, yes.
Wow, that's much easier than having people translate for you.
As we can see the written text there. Yeah?
Yes.
So what is the name of the application?
It's live transcript.
Live transcribe, yeah.
Live transcript. So this is an application you develop or that you get to use for all of the.
No, I don't have the ability to develop application, but this is available for download in Google Apps, yeah.
Now this is a very, very important factor in terms of inclusivity, because inclusion or achieving equity means that everyone gets the same access to opportunities. And for people who are hard of hearing, this is amazing. I mean, how accurate is that? Look at that.
Yes.
That's very accurate.
See, I said yes, and then it is written yes.
Very sharp. Well, Nadhifa, first of all, congratulations for being selected, as a speaker from Indonesia, because out of so many very special young people in Indonesia, 5 of you were chosen, you're one of them. So can you talk us through how you feel now that you have been chosen to speak represent Indonesia to speak at Y20 Brazil, And also, how did you, what was the selection process like for you?
First of all, I'm immensely grateful for this opportunity. And I think it is a great opportunity because it is very rare for someone with disability to be speaking in an international forum or to have dialogue with other youth from G20 countries. And 5 or 10 years ago, I never thought that this opportunity will come to me, but we have made such an advancement in inclusion and diversity dialogues in Indonesia, so I can have this opportunity. And of course, I will do my best to inclusively represent all youths in Indonesia.
Yes, yes.
So I'm still amazed with you and also the transcription. So can you elaborate for us more? What motivates you to talk about inclusion and diversity in Y20 Summit? Is it because your special needs situation or more broad than that of the issue?
Okay. Let me read a little bit in my transcription.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this application is something that gives me accessibility. I think that accessibility is an important factor that we should always consider. For example, well, see today inviting me today, they consider about my accessibility. They allow me to place a phone in front of me, allow me to introduce the transcript application. And I think it is a great opportunity to introduce to people that people with disability, including people like me, they with direct accessibility, they can also say they can have the opportunity to go globally to discuss something that is typical yours, might be able to do without any help, without any assistive devices.
Well, for me, it's very interesting because accessibility means, the technology is already there. So what are the topics, the specific topics that you will present at Y20 in terms of, inclusion and diversity? Because it's a very wide range topic. Is accessibility one of them?
Of course, first of all, I want to talk about meaningful participation. For the last 7 years, I have been advocating about meaningful participation for all kind of youth. I come from an intersectional background. I come from a diverse parents, and I come from a low-income family. And being someone with disability, let me clarify that disability can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
It can happen to anyone regardless of age, gender, sexual identity, how or when I get my disabilities. I experienced hearing loss when I was 15 years old, so I'm still able to speak verbally, but a lot other receive their disability the moment they were born.
Yeah.
And I think to be talking about the intersectionality of our identities help me to understand inclusion and diversity. And by this identity, I am talking about meaningful participation. How we as a woman, as someone with disability, be able to speaking to all of you, to talk about the severity of the condition that youth like us face. For example, without accessibility, I won't be able to participate. I want the government, the stakeholders to be able to involve youth like me and youth that are from vulnerable groups or underrepresented, so that they have meaningful participation. What I define as meaningful participation is you don't just sit and let people talk about you, but you get involved in decision-making process. I think that is what is missing in today's practice on inclusion and diversity, and I really wish to talk about it in global forum. And of course, I think that I want to highlight about inclusive education. I believe that this education is something that helps us to success. It is something that we all need in order to educate other people, in order to empower and advocate other people. So, but lately I see that the price of education keeps soaring high.
Yeah.
It's getting more expensive. In terms of youth with disability, the price is unattainable. We come from low-income family, and the acceptance rate for people with disability in education in college is very low. There are about 23 billions of people youth with disability in Indonesia, but only 1.73% graduate from college, including me, and that is a very low number. I would really like to highlight the need for inclusive education. And third, I also want to highlight the next for fostering for accountability. I think that there has been a lot of policies talking about inclusion and diversity, but it is lacking in practice.
In practice, yeah?
Yes. So we have regulation about people with disability, but it does not involve people with disability in the regulation making process. And I think that is very disappointing, because when you talk about people with disability or people from other vulnerable groups, you should really listen to them. You should sit and let them speak. Even better, let them make the decision themselves. That is how you can empower.
So that's why you bring your issue with the meaningful participation, yeah?
Yes.
So Nadhifa, I'm still curious about your background. I mean, can you elaborate more for us, like where do you come from actually, and like from what city, and then how did you prepare for this Y20 summit?
Okay, so the whole Indonesian delegates, including me, nationally, we have discussion with local organizations so that we can better represent Indonesian youth. But internationally, I have been talking with several other countries, several other G20 countries, so that we can get to know what is the main issue that is happening for youth in their countries, so that we can better analyze our policies. And probably by having this discussion, we can also address the situation that is happening right now globally, including the international armed conflict. And together we can create a policy that protect youth and empower youth. And maybe we can, in the terms of inclusion and diversity, we can also talk about the cultural sensitivity the other countries might have. For example, in Indonesia, it's quite hard to talk about LGBTQ because we are a Muslim majority country, but in other developed countries, it is a normal topic. It is a normal topic, and even some countries has legalized about LGBTQ. But by having this meeting, by having bilateral and multilateral meeting, we can get to understand where the red lines are.
So I very much appreciate, because this seems to be a topic of your expertise, because you study, if you could enlighten us of your background. What did you study in university? Because you mentioned you are one of the very low numbers of people with disabilities who get to have a higher education or get accepted and get to graduate. So can you tell us what you studied and how this has amplified your vision in terms of wanting to contribute?
I graduated from Gajah Mada University, and I graduated from English language program.
There you go. Her English is perfect. Very good. Perfect choice for international conferences. But I have one follow-up question, because you've mentioned meaningful participation, right? And you actually are, you are an example of how even a person with disabilities can be successful in life, can find their own path and even higher education. What do you think is the barrier still for people with disabilities, perhaps with your example of disability? Is it because institutions see it as a hassle? Because I understand in the corporate world it's very difficult to hire people with this, for different abilities, because they see it as sort of a hindrance. Do they have to invest in more technology? Do they have to change the meeting room procedures? What, according to your expertise and your life experience, now as a graduate, do you think that, it's she's proven that it's not a big deal?
Yes. Actually, 7 years ago, when I was in Gajah Mada University, I really advocate about the need for accessibility in my own campus. At that time, even Gajah Mada University, they don't even have program that help people with disability, students with disability, to follow through the study. In my program, they still require me to listen to English. I mean, I clearly cannot listen. But I still have to follow tests that requires me to listen English. For example, TOEIC, TOEFL, and anything that is not accessible for me. So I advocate for that, and when I graduate, they have created a way for deaf people to be able to take the test, which is to focus on reading instead of listening. And now I'm actually working as human capital business partner.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, of course, I talk about employment, inclusive employment law, from hiring practice, also in engagement with people with disability and non-disability. And I think when you want to create an inclusive employment, you have to really consider, are you inclusive, are you not?
Yes.
So instead of focusing on which kind of accessibility we have to provide to people with disability, we should really ask ourselves, have we seen people with disability as someone that is equal with us? We have to start with respect. If you cannot even respect your coworker with disability, how can you ensure that a workplace is inclusive? The rest of accessibility can follow. For example, when people talk to me and I say I'm deaf, the first thing they worry is, should I provide sign language interpreter if you want to talk to me? No, I can talk verbally and I can use technology to help me to speak with you. But it's not always the case. I know it's not always the case. Some other deaf spectrum need sign language interpreter, but it's okay. I mean, there's always a room for learning.
Yeah.
There's always a room for learning, and if you are just wondering about what accessibility I should give before they even join, who will you ask? You don't even ask them.
Yeah.
You just assume that, oh, I should provide sign language interpreter, or I should build a toilet that suits their need, or I should give them a lift that is that have braille in them. But we don't actually always need that. The accessibility is not one answer for all. I want you all to know that there is always another options to make an inclusive and accessible workplace, and sometimes it's not even expensive. This transcription application is free.
See?
Right.
I mean, I want to quote you on that because that's amazing. How do you even want to be inclusive if you can't see people with different abilities or your coworkers as equal?
Yeah.
That's the truth. That's a transformation that needs to happen in case of the mindset, and never assume, right?
Go with the respect issue first,
Yes, go with the respect.
So back to your aim going to Y20 Summit in Brazil. What outcome do you hope to achieve regarding your inclusion and diversity agenda in the Y20?
First of all, of course, I want to advocate and raise awareness about the situation of youth from vulnerable groups. And when I talk about vulnerable groups, I don't only talk about people with disability. There are women, people who live in rural area, people who come from low-income middle family, and people from diverse household. I realize that there are a lot of discrimination and stigmatization happening outside Jakarta in rural area, and even I experienced bullying, and I have to lie time to time when I was young about my condition, so both the disability and the diverse household, because I think that it is shameful. In my city, I used to live in a small village in a rural area, and I think to know that someone comes from diverse household, they will talk about us like we are failure, and access to friendship, access to inclusive education, access to better opportunities are very limited. I want to talk representing all youth, not only people with disability, in this Y20 forum, and hopefully after the summit ends, will happen in August, we will disseminate the communique that is born from our dialogue. Hopefully we can really foster the culture of accountability in Indonesia.
I love that. I mean, you've mentioned so many technical words. Before you mentioned intersectionality, that is actually the vulnerable groups. It's another word in DEI terms, and I love that you mention it, and that you also represent all the intersectionalized communities. Now, last question perhaps, what are your future plans after Y20, and what message do you have in terms of inclusivity for everyone who's watching right now?
My future plans is, of course, as you know, we discussed about the policy that should be implemented in G20 countries. I think if it is possible, I want to see on where this communique going. I mean, will it only be a document that results from dialogue, or will it be really implemented in Indonesia? So I want to keep watching and ensuring that the policies talked in during the Y20 really implemented in Indonesia. And also, we have an international consensus in inclusion and diversity tracks. A lot of countries seems to agree that they have seen disastrous effect in international armed conflict, and we want to call for protection of youth in armed conflict and call for ceasefire. Hopefully that will really happen, and that will involve youth from G20 countries, so that we can contribute to a better world, and we can follow up in our country, creating an inclusive world that is not only dream but a reality.
Wow.
It's a really noble mission, you know.
I'm inspired.
Yes.
Because, you know, everything that you've been through, you're an example of how people can actually flourish, no matter their abilities. And thank you for bringing up that there is a change and transformation of mindset necessary from all communities, and no assumptions. And you also mentioned, like, what are these stigmas that are already there and prejudices, and we need to learn how to tackle our unconscious biases.
Right, and starting with put the respect for each other.
Yes. So we want to thank Nadhifa for coming to the studio. Thank you so much. And this application for helping us.
After this,
helping us being able to, translate, transcribe for her, but also from you to us. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nadhifatun Nurrur Rahma.
Yeah.
Hopefully you will get more success when you attend the Y20 summit in Brazil.
Or perhaps you should come back to the studio after the Y20 summit finishes in Brazil and tell us all about it, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. And for the next series stories, we'll continue after the break with another stories, of course. So please don't go anywhere. Just please stay with us.